days as we envision the future of downtown Pittsburgh and review the impact of a very unprecedented year. Today, we released the State of Downtown Pittsburgh report, which I encourage you to check out online on our website. We'll also be sending you a link. If this is your second session, welcome back. You kind of know the drill. We did just complete a conversation about the return of the commercial office market, obviously critically important to our restaurants and retailers, as they're missing the over 100,000 people that we have historically welcomed into downtown Pittsburgh. But we heard some very encouraging news about the return of the office worker, and we're excited to continue this conversation to talk about the future of retail and restaurants in downtown Pittsburgh. So there's no question that restaurants and retailers play a critically important role in the vitality and vibrancy of our city. And I'd now like to introduce Caitlin Fadgen. She's the Senior Manager of Economic Development here at the Downtown Partnership. Caitlin's responsible for the 2021 State of Downtown Pittsburgh report. She keeps her finger on what's happening in downtown Pittsburgh, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the market and kind of where we are today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. And hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. First, I'm going to provide a recap of what happened in 2020 with regards to the restaurant and retail industry, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then I'll be introducing our panel moderator, who will guide us through a panel discussion with both local and national experts who will provide their perspective on what lies ahead. And then at the end, we'll leave some time for Q&A. So please just know that you will have the opportunity to ask your own questions as part of this session as well. So let's dive in. It's no surprise that the pandemic dealt a severe blow to downtown's retail and restaurant industry. When you consider that only about 11% of office occupying workers in downtown have returned to their desks, you can understand the impact that this has had on businesses that depend on this critical daytime population. Overall, Pennsylvania restaurant sales were down 38% between January 2020 and January 2021, according to the National Restaurant Association. Pennsylvania ordered the restaurants and bars to shut down dine-in services on March 16, 2020. Then shortly after, all non-essential businesses were forced to shut down just 3 days later. At the time, retailers were not allowed to reopen for in-person sales again until May, just over a year ago. As a result, activity in the Golden Triangle bottomed out in April 2020. Market Square, typically one of the most active areas in the central business district, showed a 94% decline in visitors compared to April 2019, the year prior. And similarly, downtown's cultural district also experienced a devastating 95% decline in visitor traffic. The early months of the pandemic marked a critical time for retailers and restaurants. The most successful businesses implemented online shopping and ordering methods, employed contactless delivery, and offered curbside pickup as options to serve their customers safely. Unfortunately, 77 retailers and restaurants in Greater Downtown permanently closed their doors in 2020 and through the first few months of 2021. Compared to a typical year, this marks about a 74% increase in closures, and currently 15% of all businesses still remain temporarily closed. These range from popular restaurants to specialty stores and coffee shops. Despite a tough year for small shops and restaurants, several entrepreneurs have taken advantage of a handful of second-generation restaurant spaces that have come online as a result of the pandemic. 29 new restaurants and retailers opened their doors in 2020 through April 2021. 16 of these new businesses are restaurants, and downtown currently has about 10 additional restaurants and retailers that are ready in the pipeline and are expected to open by the end of the year. Another bright spot on downtown's landscape last year was expanded outdoor dining. The PDP spearheaded efforts with the support and leadership of the city's Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to reconfigure downtown streets, allowing 24 restaurants and bars to expand outdoor dining in locations throughout the Golden Triangle. This helped businesses to stay open while more effectively addressing safety requirements, occupancy restrictions, and best practices to reduce the spread of COVID-19. So let's get to the discussion. But before I introduce our moderator, I want to reiterate to the audience that you're able to participate today by submitting questions for the panelists using the Q&A feature button found on the bottom of your screen at any point during the panel discussion. We'll allow time near the end of the session to answer as many audience questions as time allows. So for the remainder of the session, I am going to turn the floor over to our moderator, Herky Pollock, recognized both nationally and locally as one of the most prominent retail brokers in the country. With his extensive market knowledge and 31 plus years of residential or real estate experience, Herky provides corporate real estate services to major retailers and developers throughout the country. Herky, take it away.
Thank you very much, Kaylin, and Jeremy, thank you as well. I want to, before I begin, thank both of you and the whole entire PDP for your efforts throughout the pandemic. I know it's been quite challenging for all of you, and I can tell you firsthand and on behalf of our city, your efforts have not gone unnoticed, and your work has been critical to our future survival and our current survival. So thank you for your efforts, and your heavy lifting has not been unnoticed or unappreciated. So thank you very, very much. When I was asked to moderate this panel, I was pretty much given latitude to put together a group of what I thought would be a representative sample of the best. And I'm proud to announce that I've exceeded my expectations by putting together a panel which is nationally known, locally known, very prominent, and have a very, very successful career of backgrounds. You'll hear from our panelists. We have 2 national speakers and 3 local speakers who will be joining us. They're quite established. And I'll go through their bios right now. And the biggest challenge that I had initially was paring down their bios because they're so prestigious that I could literally go on for the whole entire hour discussing their backgrounds. But without further ado, let me introduce you to our panelists. First up, Dana Telsey. Dana is a longtime friend of mine and the Chief Executive Officer and Chief Research Officer at Telsey Advisory Group. Dana is the CEO and Chief Research Officer of Telsey Advisory, which is called TAG, and her team covers both US and international companies across all market caps in the following sectors: apparel manufacturers, children's and teen retailers, consumer electronics retailers, cosmetics, department stores, discounters, footwear, home furnishings retailers, home improvement retailers, internet, luxury goods, office supply retailers, off-price retailers, restaurants, specialty apparel, sporting goods retailers, and supermarkets. In 2015, Ms. Telsey also formed the Telsey Consumer Fund Management LP, which is an asset management firm that manages a long and short-term hedge fund investing in consumer-based businesses. Throughout her whole entire career, she's followed over 100 companies, and in her 31-year career, and as the only US-based analyst to provide comprehensive and a complete analysis of European luxury goods sector. From 1994 to 2006, she was at Bear Stearns, covering the retail sector as the Senior Managing Director. I can go on and on and on, but Dana's background is incredible. So rather than me talking about Dana, I introduced you Dana, who comes to us after having spoken numerous times on CNN, CNBC, Bloomberg Radio, World News Tonight, ABC News, Good Morning America, and others. So I'm proud to call Dana my friend and welcome her to our panel. So without further ado, Dana, I turn it over to you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Herky, thank you so very much. And I'm proud to call you my friend also. When Herky emailed me and told me about this panel, I said, I'm in, because it was a panel that he was supporting and that he likes. Well, then it's going to be that and even much more so for me. So thank you so much for having me here today. And I have a fondness for Pittsburgh. I even have a bunch of people in my company who are from Pittsburgh. So I'm hearing about it all the time, about the newness and change that's going on. So happy to share the insights of what's changing. And I hope everyone and their families are safe and healthy. And I'm proud to be here with certainly some of the esteemed the other panelists that Herky has on the panel today. So thank you so very much. Should I just go into a little bit about what we're seeing out there?
Yes, please. Then I'll circle back and introduce Larissa and Kevin and Lisa and Tolga. But I didn't want to just go through all 5 bios at once, so I turn it over to you.
Totally get it. Thank you. So thank you for having me here today. I'm thrilled to tell you a little bit about what's changing, because frankly, everything has. It's amazing that it's been over a year that we've all been in these new lifestyles. And I will tell you a little bit about our themes of what we're seeing out there, all in relation to supercharged change. And when I think of supercharged change, what it means to us when we came up with this thematic that's out there, it signifies the acceleration of actions that really took place in 2020 due to the pandemic that frankly would have taken 3 to 5 years to achieve. And what I mean by that is store closures that should have occurred, they did occur within a year. Bankruptcies that occurred, they did occur. We had nearly 90 bankruptcies in 2020 compared to just the 9 so far in 2021. And we have had increased e-commerce penetration. Well, guess what? You haven't had physical retail go away. If anything, the importance of physical retail only became that much more recognizable. So let's move to the first page, Chad, and we'll talk a little bit, tell you a little bit about Telsey Advisory Group and who we are. Our company started 15 years ago. I came out of Bear Stearns, and there were 4 of us who started TAG. And what we always did, we loved consumer and thought there was a better way to follow consumer. Now, fast forward 15 years later, and there's around 3 legs to our stool of what we do in the consumer space. First up, we cover around 11 different sectors, whether it, like what Herky mentioned, from apparel to hard lines and consumer electronics and home and supermarkets, with around 50 people in the company. And we have the research arm through which everyone filters up from. We write product, we call, we visit, we do presentations. We have a sales force and a trading desk who sells that product to the pension funds, mutual funds, and hedge funds. We have a banking and consulting arm, and we consult to all different types of retailers, all different types of retail real estate companies in what we're seeing in the landscape and what omni-channel means for the future in terms of business development. And we participate in initial public offerings of new companies, whether it's Joann's, Leslie's, Peloton, and a host of others. And frankly, what allows us to be part of that business is the strength and insight of our terrific research team, along with the fact that we're a women-owned business enterprise, which has become so important lately in this culture of what's happening with ESG and what's happening with diversity and inclusion. And then lastly, we have a consumer fund, Telsey Consumer Fund, which is a long-short hedge fund. It was started around 5 years ago, friends and family. And today I can tell you we are just getting more than doubling our assets from the state pension fund. And the fund is growing given the performance, which has been up over 100% since inception, up 23% net last year, up 21% so far this year. If anyone would like information, happy to provide that if you email me. So that's our business. It is consumer 24 hours a day, all day, figuring out what's next in this landscape of supercharged change. Let's move forward. So the reopening. I'd love to hear what it looks like in Pittsburgh. I'm sitting here on 5th Avenue in New York in my office. I'm the only one in my office because Manhattan is a ghost of what it formerly was, but certainly there is a bit more traction, a bit more energy today than there was just 3 or 6 months ago. And I'll tell you what we're seeing out there. In the short term, we're seeing consumer spending being quite robust. You have savings, stimulus, tax refunds that consumers have gotten. So they have the ability to spend more so than what they had even 2 years ago. We're also seeing the release of pent-up demand. When the world went cold turkey and went on lockdown, think of what was missed last year, whether it was gatherings, graduations, anniversaries, weddings, you name it, but everyone became communicated with each other through Zoom. I can't wait till we get back to some of these in-person interactions when everyone is vaccinated. And we're certainly closer today to that point than we were just 6 months ago. And so when you think about this calendar second quarter, whether we have Mother's Day, Father's Day, Memorial Day, the outdoor gatherings, certainly there's going to be more this year than what we had last year. But yet, I think one of the remnants that is going to remain is safety and cleanliness standards. I think everywhere we go going forward, whether it is hand sanitizer, whether it is sometimes mask wearing in order to prevent illness and prevent the spread to others, I think the heightened levels of safety and cleanliness certainly will remain. And then what we're seeing lately is improving traffic, not yet returning to 2019 levels, but certainly improving. Last week, we were speaking with many of the outdoor retail real estate companies, whether it's Tanger Factory Outlet Centers, Regency Centers, and many of them are talking about the fact that their traffic levels are nearly at 90% of 2019 levels. And we always have to look at everything relative to 2019. So in the short term, it's better. We're seeing consumer spending, we're seeing gatherings beginning, we're seeing traffic improving. At the same time, one of the largest credit card companies I spoke to yesterday, you're still seeing online strength, certainly not what it was last year, but still better than it was in 2019. And what do we see about this from the long term? What is the workplace going to look like in the future? Is it 2 or 4 days a week that people go to the office? I think the hybrid workplace environment is here to stay, because what you do need a workplace for, and you need togetherness, training people. We've certainly found that a bit harder to train people when they're not in the office. Big meetings and collaboration to come up with innovation, that's helpful. And just in order to maintain that culture of being together. And whether it's holiday parties that come in the future, whether it's in-office meetings, I think the hybrid workplace not only creates a more balanced work-life balance, but also creates a happier worker with more insights, ideas, and innovation to move businesses forward. I think we're going to see cities recover over time. I grew up in Manhattan, New York tough. I think we're going to see people come back to cities. Why do they want to be in cities? There's entertainment, there's museums, there's restaurants, there's excitement. And I think we'll see that in some of the real estate takeaways on residential real estate here in Manhattan. The past 6 weeks have been more transactions and purchases than you had in all of 2020. So I think that robustness, that environment returns, and it does take time. Because what we also need is, we need tourism, and we're certainly not there yet. We're seeing online sales, and online sales is leading to new customers. One of the biggest changes that happened last year when the world pivoted to online sales is brand after brand. As I was talking to them, we garnered 5 million new customers. We garnered 3 million new customers. Whatever the number is, it was more. And a lot of the new customers that brands got, they were younger. And so being able to keep those customers is key as you open the physical landscape and you want to make the repeat nature and vibrancy and retain those customers that you wouldn't have gotten even before the pandemic. We're seeing consumers are more engaged with the outdoors. Think about whether it's kayaking, rowing, running, you name it, the outdoors was the only thing that you could take advantage of last year when everything was closed. And I think those activities that fit into health and wellness certainly are going to be a remnant going forward, and that frankly is enjoyable. And then what else do we see? I think when you think about sustainability, when you think about mission and purpose, we think sustainability is key and needs to be part of a brand's story, a brand's DNA, a brand's ethos, and has to tell part of the reason why. Why does a consumer want to buy that brand? Because they have a mission that's aligned with the purpose of that person, that they have ideals, that they have authenticity, that means something to the ultimate consumer. Because today it's not just buy more, buy more, buy more. It's the why of it. Why am I buying this brand? What does it deliver for me? How do they represent what I believe in? Beliefs are more important to everyone in how they're spending their dollars. And then data analytics and machine learning. I think one of the things that's coming out of the pandemic is inventory management is better than it's been in the past. And yes, the data analytics from learning what the consumer wants, the data analytics from being able to order more appropriately, and frankly, lead to more personalized orders. So you're getting what you want when you want, and not hopefully having as many returns as you had in the past. And then we're seeing new product innovation through technology. I was speaking to Estee Lauder, and do you know that the virtual chat sessions or the virtual try-on, the conversion can be 4 times higher sometimes than what it would have been in other formats. And then lastly, what it's leading to, the physical store is the hub. It is being reconfigured and restructured. Where do you go for buy online, pick up in store? What space do you have for fulfilling from store? And what space do you have just for interacting with the customer? So the reopening of the economy in 2021 is exciting. There's opportunity, and businesses and their business plans are more accelerated than they would have been if it would have been pre-pandemic. So the tragedy of the pandemic, and it is a tragedy given the pain and suffering so many people went through, is leading to a greater sense of urgency that's driving growth in sales and profitability from companies who are willing to advance and move forward. And it's their teams that are pushing them forward. Let me tell you what else we're seeing on the next page. So supercharged change. And as I mentioned before, supercharged change is super important because we're seeing consumers, retailers really adapting to a new normal. I mentioned the cities, that cities will recover and it's only a matter of time. Well, we're also seeing the strength of the suburbs. The suburbs is hot because the remote workforce is a game changer, and it is leading to more new concepts opening in the suburbs. Offices, always on really is the theme with work from home. It replaces in-person office hours. That commute that may be up to 2 hours or even longer is replaced by being able maybe to work out and go for a run and then get back to your work. I do believe that the future in office may only be 2 to 4 days a week. And what does it mean for scheduling? More control over your own scheduling. And what that essentially shows is that the productivity that everyone thought would be lost, I know I did, from remote work isn't lost, it's only enhanced. Remote work has been a positive for Telsey Advisory Group, and I think it's been a positive for other companies as we have retained the culture while operating in different physical formats than we have had in the past. And I think the home becomes multifunctional. It's an office, an entertainment center, and an exercise center. I was in a home store this weekend and talking to a sales associate. And when they reopened in June, he said, we reopened June, the first thing everyone came for was desk chairs because their backs were killing them and they wanted a desk chair. And that's all they bought. They came back a month later and they said, you know what? I need a different desk in order to basically have more room and be even with my desk chair. They got a desk and then they left. And then they came back a month later. They said, well, since I'm going to be home for a while, I need a new couch. I'm sick of looking at the same couch. So the momentum of home is continuing, given the functionality of the home is greatly expanded, given more people are spending more time in their home. And we've heard of so many people move. I don't know about all of you, but in our company, we've had around 5 or 6 people move, and they've moved permanently. They're still working with us. We'll fly them in when physical interactions become return to normal. But what they all asked for when they decided to move, and they all told me this, we needed to make sure that our connectivity and the speed was up to par so we can interact and respond quickly. So I think that ability to communicate anywhere, anytime is leading personal technology, not to be a nice to have, but to be a must have, because this technology is leading to not just to work interactions, but what about the virtual medical appointment? What about virtual learning? What about what's happening with just personal technology and seeing movies on your phone? Personal technologies is part of the elements of supercharged change. And lastly, we've got contactless commerce and then return to nature. Well, we mentioned that safety is definitely one of the elements that is top of mind. What also is contactless commerce. What does that mean for cash? It's contactless commerce is replacing cash. And the reason why, the safety of it, the cleanliness, the sanitization of it, I think we're going to see whether it's buy online, pick up in store, curbside pickup, home delivery, the closer you can get to your customer with contactless commerce, the more relevant you'll be and more of a destination you'll be for your customer. And as I mentioned, return to nature. outdoors provides peace of mind. I remember I was speaking to Michael Kors, and one of the things he said is he'd never been in the city in the spring, and just seeing flowers and all different forms of nature, it really showed him what the value is of this return to nature. And I think more people saw that and appreciated it. There was an article in the New York Times last week about tulips, that Manhattan had more tulips than we've had forever, and there was more picture taking that people had. I think that return to nature is part of the enjoyment and satisfaction that's coming out of the pandemic. And that's all a part of supercharged change. Let's go to the next page and let's see what's happening in the retail environment. Yes, we had a lot of concepts go away, but you know what? We have a lot of new concepts. When you think about new concepts, for example, in activewear like Viore, in footwear like Allbirds, in apparel for teens and young 20s and Faraday, there isn't just the closings, there's the openings and the reimaginings. And when you think about reimaginings, what about cars? Lucid, Rivian, Polestar, they're taking more space, they increase the sales per square feet, and certainly with electric, it fills the social needs of what consumers are looking for today that I think are only going to grow in importance. And what about food retail, the specialized markets that are out there? You're certainly seeing with Amazon Food, where we're hearing of an abundance of store openings coming over the next few years. And you're hearing about it in services, whether it's Glossier, European Wax Center, or Forward, which is the medical retail concept. I think we always have 10-year cycles and waves of where new growth comes from. We're at the beginning of a wave of new concepts that are emerging and that are growing. And then when you think about new business strategies, we've talked about meaning and purpose and what it means. Wearing again, being able to recycle matters to consumers. And you're seeing that in all different price points, in all different categories. Thread up in terms of moderate price clothing, Real in terms of luxury, Poshmark in building the community, Credo in clean beauty. I think the meaning and purpose is only going to expand in importance for consumers of all different age groups. And you're seeing it in brands, whether it's brand messaging like Levi's, Buy Better, Live Longer, Cool Planet by Steve Madden, and the ingredients that are in the materials that they're using in their footwear. I think the marketing that we're going to see from brands and retailers are going to include more meaning and purpose than they had in the past. And let's talk about partnerships, because growing together means growing faster. So all of a sudden you have Ulta going into Target, you have Sephora going into Kohl's. Why? The reason why, if you think about the nearly 70 million plus loyalty members of Target, you think about the over 30 million loyalty members of Ulta, they each benefit. Target gets more brands, gets better brands. They get adoption of the Ulta loyalty customers. Ulta gets more customers. They can become Ulta loyalty members. And any person who spends on Ulta and is a loyalty member when they spend at Target, you can only redeem those Ulta loyalty points at Target, at Ulta, I mean. So it's a win-win for Target, a win-win for Ulta. Think about it with Kohl's and Sephora. Kohl's has over 70% of their customers being women. They need to drive more traffic. Well, Sephora will help them do that. Sephora gets the over 30 million loyalty customers of Kohl's become their customer. And when you look at the radius and the distance between a Sephora store and Kohl's, they're quite distant. They're quite far apart. So Sephora is getting new customers, Kohl's is getting new traffic. I think this creativity of partnerships is accelerated by the pandemic. Adidas and Peloton, Gap and Kanye, modernizing, becoming more relevant. These are new business strategies that are leading to acceleration in the brand acceptance by the consumers and the sales and profits of the companies. And I think there's more new strategies to come going forward. Let's move to the next page and wrap up by talking about the long-term trends. 2 years ago, safety wouldn't be in the center. Because of the pandemic, it is. Safety matters to all ages, all demographics. And what is safety? What's orbiting around safety? The community. Because if you provide elements of safety, you have a stronger community who wants to and needs to be together, who basically goes to physical lifestyle centers and spends more time. Speed. Safety incorporates speed. Think about what we talked about with contactless commerce, and closer to the customer matters. Why is everyone doing buy online, pick up in store, or fulfill from store? It's safe and it's fast. And think about the experience it gives you. You're in stock, you're fulfilling that consumer's need, and you say, that mattered. It made it easy. Convenience is key, and that's what provides a good experience. When you think about experiential going forward also, it deals with technology and the personalization that's there. One of the things we've all missed during this pandemic time period is experiences. Memories come from experiences. Zoom meetings, they're great, they're fulfilling the need, but I can't tell you, I can't wait to come to Pittsburgh and do this in person. I think we'll get to know each other better. So I think experiential and safety matters. Convenience, I talked about how key that is. Big data and technology, making everyone smarter, making businesses' growth plans more assured in terms of what they can accomplish, and giving consumers more of what they want when they want. And this all comes because of omni-channel. You must have the digital and physical interconnected in a way that the consumer doesn't even know. They just know that their desires for purchasing are getting satisfied with ease, with safety, and with convenience. And so those are what I look at as the long-term retail trends for 2021 and beyond. Thank you. I think now I turn it over to Larissa.
Actually, let me introduce Larissa, but first off, let me thank you, Dana, because I'm always impressed beyond words how intuitive you are and how insightful you are with regard to retail and what's going on in the retail landscape. When you layer in the omni-channel presence and all the regard to the pandemic, it's quite informative. So thank you once again, and it's no mystery why you are the preeminent retail analyst in the country. So thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Without further ado, let me also introduce another friend of mine, Larissa Ortiz. And these two ladies are incredible. They're both a national perspective on what's going on in the country today. And Larissa is the managing director of the public and nonprofit solutions at StreetSense, which is now in partnership with CBRE. And as managing director of public and nonprofit solutions, Larissa brings over 25 years of experience advising public, private, and nonprofit sector clients on retail real estate strategy in urban environments. She's led hundreds of comprehensive retail planning efforts across communities, large and small, both nationally and internationally. Larissa is also an author of Improving Tenant Mix, published by the International Council of Shopping Centers, which, by the way, Dana is also a board member for the ICSC, and Larissa also serves as the mayoral appointee to the New York City Planning Commission. She's a Fulbright Scholar, a Watson Fellow, clearly an underachiever. Larissa has traveled the world studying successful downtown and mixed-use environments. She holds an undergraduate degree from Wesleyan University and a master's in city planning with a certificate of urban design from MIT. So without further ado, I welcome Larissa Ortiz to our panel. Thank you, Larissa, very much for joining us.
Thank you, Herky. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Make sure this works. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. And thank you to the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership for the opportunity to share my perspective on the future of retail and restaurants. And that was a fantastic presentation, Dana. Thank you. I think it was a great entree to what I'll speak to, some of which, share similar themes. But I think the question that I want to help us answer and focus on is, what do we do about downtowns? How do some of those trends translate to the downtown environment? When we looked at the data that was presented earlier, over 60% of downtown businesses are mom and pops. So how do we make sure mom and pops get into this action? And I think, part of this is asking the question, what makes downtown environments unique? Downtown retail environments specifically. They are not like malls. Malls are single owner environments with tenants who can negotiate with a single landlord, and common areas that are controlled by an owner. So all of the management and investment of that asset is controlled by, a single entity. Downtowns are not like that. Downtowns, I always joke, downtowns, it's like herding cats. The work of the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership is precisely like herding cats. Multiple property owners with different objectives, really challenging environment to manage tenant mix, for instance, to make sure that we have co-location and anchors that work. So I think we have to acknowledge that the work in downtown is really complicated. And downtowns are complicated ecosystems governed by so many conditions. The first is really the physical environment, the look and the feel of the place. The Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership is our steward of downtown, making sure the public realm feels safe and comfortable, that consumers first and foremost can get there, can leave, and while they're there and walking around, they're comfortable, and the buildings are in good shape, the roads are paved. That's sort of the basic, right? The second is market. Businesses do not exist absent customers, whether they work in offices, whether they're local residents or visitors, and the pandemic has certainly affected the customer base of our downtowns. Third is what I call capacity. So, back to this comparison with mall environments, downtown doesn't work if there's no consensus for action. The regulations, the resources, the leadership decisions all require a level of coordination that frankly is tremendous. It makes our job a lot more difficult. How do we improve an environment for businesses when all of these people have to agree on something? And then last, the actual environment itself, the density, where we have areas of density, where businesses co-locate, where they benefit from a shared customer base, where they benefit from a mix. We have to, in the future, make really difficult decisions about where we're going to support density of offerings and where we might let it go. And so I think that's what's coming. So what's changing? Well, first, there have been tremendous asymmetrical impacts on retail, and businesses in downtown markets like Pittsburgh, where about 80% of your downtown customer base is a daytime office worker, have been really hard hit. If 80% of your businesses disappear from one day to the next, you have challenges. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have neighborhoods where 80 to 100% of the customers are residents. Those neighborhoods prove so much more resilient during the pandemic. And equity is also an issue here. Those in finance, professional services, tech, they were able to work from home. They shifted their daytime spending and habits as well. So instead of a coffee on the way to work, they maybe ordered lunch or takeout from a local restaurant. And when Doug Stevens, who's a great retail futurist, he calls himself, said that every one tech worker supports 6 service jobs. So if we think about Pittsburgh, the waiters, the bussers, the shoe shine guys, they lost their livelihoods in this process. So I think we have to keep that in mind. The good news, though, is that retail sales have stabilized. People are spending. CBRE reported that in the last quarter of 2020, that year-over-year sales grew by 3.9%. Not only that, but Dana mentioned this, savings have skyrocketed. And I love this anecdote. The Economist estimated that the wealthiest 21 nations would have saved $3 trillion in the first 9 months of 2020, but instead they saved $6 trillion. That's fueling an incredible amount of spending and investment. And I think our question is, how do we position downtown to capture that? But what lies ahead is highly dependent on office worker return to work. And I have been working in retail for a long time. And right now I'm obsessed with understanding CEO sentiment and return to work. And the news really is mixed. CEOs are all over the place. Some are pressing for return to work. Some are finding that remote work suits them fine. But I think ultimately labor markets are going to decide. If labor markets are tight, the best employees are going to get to call the shots. And if they want to go to remote, they're going to get it. And if they want to be in the office, they're going to get it. So let's look back. Castle System actually tracks this. They do those key cards, and the 10 city average of return to office right now is 26%. Dallas is at 41%, New York at 16, one of the lower markets, but Philadelphia, which I think probably is a corollary to Pittsburgh, is about at 27%. And that's still a lot of people who aren't in their offices shopping every day. And I think that we cannot underestimate the impacts on property valuation. So Fitch Ratings in March conducted a number of cash flow stress tests on office properties to understand the impact of a decline in demand. So even at 1.5 days of remote work, that results in a 20% decline in office workers and a net cash flow decline for property owners of 15%. So this is really discomforting. Property owners are in for a double whammy. Property owners in downtown. The impact, they're going to feel the impact on the cash flow above the ground floor, and then the loss of those customers is going to impact sales for those on the ground floor. So make no bones about it, we really do have our work cut out for us. And I won't belabor this, but more people have obviously become accustomed to online shopping, creating opportunities for some, challenges for others. Mom and pops in particular, I think, are struggling to embrace this and make sure that their customers can find them online. And that's been part of the challenge that a lot of downtown organizations are facing. So how do we fix this? I think we have to go back to basics. We have to create the conditions that invite customers back. And I think there are 4 key ingredients. Market, customers, basically. Access, how do you get into and out of downtown? Making sure that we remove every single hurdle to entry. Mobility, how do people get around when they're downtown? And visibility, once they're there, giving them the cues that businesses are open for business. And starting with market, I think there are 3 things. There's a residential strategy here. We know the most resilient markets were those with strong residential bases. So, how do we make sure that we drive residents in downtown? And downtown Pittsburgh has about 31,000 residents. And by our calculations, that supports 90 to 180,000 square feet of retail demand. But downtown has about 1.9 million square feet of retail. So in some ways, that's a small piece of the bucket right now, or piece of the pie. The bigger opportunity here, or the bigger need, is really a return to office strategy. And as I said, it's going to depend on labor markets. If young professionals and talent wants to be back in the office, we will figure out a way to get them back in the office. So I think this depends on place-based strategies. And yesterday, the Wall Street Journal called out Greenville, South Carolina, which is pictured here, as a breakout mid-sized city. And they interviewed a CEO who said that, during the pandemic, he moved his company and he was sold on downtown Greenville because of Greenville Falls Park, which is a set of trails, this waterfall that, previously had been covered by a bridge. And years ago, the park and bridge were improved, and the overpass was removed. And this is a $13.5 million investment that has reaped an economic impact multiplier of over 40 in property tax revenue, hotel occupancy rates, and yes, retail sales. So, I think as we look ahead, how do we make sure that your 131,000 employees are having, wonderful experience in downtown? Part of that is investing in public place. And then finally, visitor strategy, getting people before they get downtown through branding and digital marketing. That's something our firm does as well. And this is a project we did for Bothell, Washington, which is destination marketing. If someone's on their computer and on their phone, that's when they're making a decision whether they should go to downtown Pittsburgh. And then managing shrinkage. We know that, even under the best of circumstances, that we have a softening in the retail market. And Pittsburgh's 1.9 million square feet of retail, of which 23% is vacant. We're going to have to make decisions about where we want to support co-location. And that means looking at your zoning, looking at where we're making sure we create districts that support co-location and where we might let other places go. Access is another big one. I think making sure that all of our systems work our buses, our trains, the way people used to get downtown. We have to make this really easy, because remember, working from home is really easy. So that's the competition right now, and making sure those systems work. And making sure that we're enhancing and creating more opportunities for mobility within downtown. And I love micromobility because it's such a great way to make stores and offerings more accessible to a broader range of customers. And then when I say mobility, I really refer to the ability to get around once you are in downtown, and cross shop, and make sure you can cross the street safely, and that that we have co-location of businesses, so that someone very easily, again, lowering hurdles to cross shopping, can easily go from one store to the next to the next. So supporting stronger nodes of offerings that makes it easier for businesses, and enhances their connectivity to one another and the synergy between them. And then finally, visibility. And I think this means a lot of things. This means the businesses that you can see, the wayfinding. But I want to speak to specifically signage. A few years ago, our firm was involved with the Shiloh Street signage that went up in partnership with the local CDC. And they had a problem. They had, it was between 1 and 2 million visitors go up to the top of, Grandview Avenue on the incline, look at the view, and then turn around and go back down. Well, we recognize that issue, and the simple intervention of blade signs resulted in a 30% increase in pedestrian traffic, and resulted in this one jeweler, at the end of the street, opening up from 2 days a week to 5 days a week, because that traffic resulted in more sales. So, I think, I want to say we have our work cut out for us. There are wonderful opportunities. There are lots of trends that, we're concerned about, but if we start from the world where it is, as it is, not as we would like it to be, I think we'll be in a great position to advance strategies that will help downtown. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Larissa. Your reputation precedes you, and I thank you for your national perspective, and also layering in the Pittsburgh perspective. And your work in the past in Pittsburgh has been hugely beneficial to the PDP. I think there's a lot of great lessons for us all to learn, but also a lot of great lessons for the PDP to take forward. So thank you very much for your time and your effort in the presentation. All right, so now we've heard the national perspective, and now it's time to bring in our 3 local experts, our local panelists, to round out the mix and talk about the Pittsburgh perspective. So we have 3 incredible panelists: Kevin Acklin, Tolga Sevdik, and Lisa Schlesinger. And Kevin, all 3 are friends of mine and longtime friends. Kevin's in his 3rd season as the COO and General Counsel for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's his first as Chief Operating Officer after spending 2 seasons with the team as a Senior VP and General Counsel for the Penguins. He provides strategic advice to the senior executive team and serves as a point person on the development of the former Civic Arena site. Prior to that, he was most recently the Vice President and Chief Legal Counsel of Peoples Natural Gas. And prior to that, he served as the Chief of Staff to Mayor Peduto, overseeing the day-to-day operations of the city of Pittsburgh. He's a lifelong Pittsburgher. He spent his legal career in Boston. What I didn't know, what I learned today, actually prior to today, but I'm reporting today, is I was unaware. I always thought Kevin was so mild-mannered, but I learned that he was actually the goon on the Central Catholic hockey team when he was growing up. So I think he put his dropping the gloves behind him. He's become a much more mild-mannered executive as time went on. Lisa Schlesinger is the owner of Laramore's. She's the owner and general merchandise manager for men's and women's, all departments for Laramore's. She specializes as a buyer for men's sportswear, furnishings, women's ready-to-wear, and accessories. She's an experienced business owner with a demonstrated history of working in the retail industry. She's into trend analysis, negotiation, budgeting, sales, leadership, and retail. She's from a strong entrepreneurship. She's a strong entrepreneurship professional with a BA focused in liberal arts from Washington University. And as an aside, Laramore's is one of the preeminent men's and women's clothiers in the entire nation, having been around Pittsburgh since 1939. Try to think about that. And last, but certainly not least, is a dear friend of mine who I've known since his days back in the Strip District, Tolga Sevdik, who's the co-owner and chief operating officer of the Richard DeShantz Restaurant Group. He's a phenomenal professional. Rick, his partner, births these concepts, and Tolga gets to raise them and run them from day-to-day operations. So he may look a little stressed today because he's having just gone through the pandemic and still is of trying to run restaurants and hire. He's an incredible operator. The Richard DeShantz Restaurant Groups is one of, if not the preeminent restaurant group in Pittsburgh. They are award-winning, often with acclaim from James Beard, Zagat, Bon Appetit, Food and Wine. And I personally credit them for the transformation of the cultural district with regard to restaurants. They continue to raise the bar with their new operations that they open up year after year. And they are incredible operators and incredible additions to the Pittsburgh landscape. So I am very pleased to welcome all of our panelists to our national panelists. And with that, I'm going to open it up for some questions. And I'm going to start with, is Kevin here?
Yes. Hey, Herky.
Hi, Kevin. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Pleased to be here.
Start out with a question to you. So first of all, congratulations are in order for winning the division last week. It's awesome. And also, more importantly, congratulations on your victory at the Planning Commission last week, which was perhaps the biggest win since the Penguins won the Stanley Cup since 2017.
I'll let you guess which one left more scars, but I'm not going to. I think you probably know.
If you would, can you speak to the future and opportunities surrounding the 28-acre site and what your plans are and what your day-to-day worries and concerns, as well as your optimism going forward with that site?
Well, thank you, Herky, and very pleased to be here on behalf of the team. You know, there are two really elements here. Obviously, the 28-acre site, the former Civic Arena, the Lower Hill District, which had previously been a very vibrant neighborhood where a lot of immigrants who came to Pittsburgh came through. Ultimately, you know, in the 1950s, through some of the mistakes on planning that occurred at that time, the neighborhood was decimated. People were displaced. The Civic Arena was built. And then 10 years later, the Penguins came into existence in the 60s. So this is a long time history of a site. For the last 10 years, it's been largely vacant. It's been a parking lot largely to support the arena. We've been actively working to change that, as folks who may have been following what we're trying to do on the Lower Hill. As Herky mentioned, we have our first approval at City Planning for the first phase, which is a 26-story tower, the headquarters of First National Bank. And candidly, if Vince DeLee wasn't from Oakland, Vince DeLee wasn't from the north side, David Morehouse, my boss, wasn't from Beachview, and myself, a native of South Oakland, you know, it really took that commitment to Pittsburgh and to try to right past wrongs to get this development started. And so what we're looking to do here is, again, a 28-acre mixed-use development with a hotel future. Obviously, with the pandemic, those assets have taken a hit. With housing, to not only extend the Hill District into downtown, but to reconnect the neighborhood physically, culturally, and economically to the rest of the city. So we're very excited to finally get started. This won't be coming online until 2023, and so by that point, you know, hopefully we'll see some rebounding, you know, in terms of traffic and attention. But on the other side, what we're trying to do is really recover. You know, we're one of three major sports teams here in Pittsburgh, along with our partners across the river, with the Pirates and the Steelers. You know, one of every two visitors to a downtown venue attends a sporting event. And that's straight from the PDP's report back in 2017. We're really on the cusp of helping to reopen the economy. Right now, we're still operating at 25%. But, you know, as visitors come here in a typical year, PPG Paints Arena, where I am today, you know, hosts 1.6 million visitors, 160 nights a year. So part of what we're trying to capture on the Lower Hill is to create part of that as an arena district, to make sure that those fans, whether to come to watch a hockey game or a concert, are coming pregame to go to a bar, a restaurant, or visit a cultural facility to learn a little bit about the history of the Lower Hill, and then also, you know, post game, to enjoy themselves and be a part of the community. So as Herky, we alluded to before, it's a big lift. I don't think the city has seen this scale of development on a site this large adjacent to downtown, but it's one that we're very much committed to, not only to rebuild this part of the city, to make up for some past mistakes that were made in the last century, but also to reconnect this neighborhood to the rest of downtown and the city, and to help capture the energy of typically people when they come to a concert or a game here, they park on this site and then they leave. We're looking to have them stay here and contribute to the vibrancy of downtown and create a new center of energy for the entire city.
Thank you, Kevin. We look forward to it. As a follow-up question, given your background as chief of staff for the mayor of Pittsburgh and now someone on the other side of the table with the Penguins, what can we do better as a region to make Pittsburgh more user-friendly?
Well, I think, definitely, there's been a lot of challenges across the city to development. Capital is fungible these days more than anywhere. Capital that's going to the city, should be appreciated and welcomed. That being said, community-driven development is the best kind of development. It's harder, especially when you're dealing with systemic poverty, a neighborhood that's been disinvested and discriminated against, like the Hill District has for 70 years. So, there's definitely a challenge to build trust and to try to reconnect, and invest in and empower neighborhoods that haven't seen that type of investment. So we're very much supportive of that kind of community-driven development. Certainly, the city has really suffered in the loss of revenues, like a lot of folks on the call have, loss of income, loss of tax revenues. So certainly, you'd like to see some additional investments in the future in the planning department, also in permits. I know the mayor personally and Chief Gilman, who replaced me on the 5th floor, is working very hard every day to try to make sure that development, when it happens here, is inclusive and is community driven. And so again, it's harder. It's definitely takes more engagement and a lot more trust building, but that's what it takes to rebuild a city like Pittsburgh that has suffered in the past, but is slowly pre-pandemic on really some nice organic growth with the the industries that we have here with our tech and ed sector. So it's definitely different on the other side. You see the challenges that it faces to go through some of the bureaucracy, but I can assure you that those who are working in the city and the county are working very hard to make sure that everybody wins with this new growth that hopefully will be rebounding soon.
Thanks, Kevin. Great answer. Tolga, early in the pandemic, it was said that perhaps as many as 60% of the restaurants, 60% will be forced to close. Can you speak to how impactful the PPP, EIDL, EDF, and RRF work to your business and what will mean to your group going forward?
Archie, thanks for having me here. Thanks PDP for having me here today. It was helpful. It was, I think the restaurant business also the retail got hit probably the worst during the pandemic. These helped from the government, helped us a little bit to just, go through the storm and just survive. PPP definitely helped us to give our employees that also struggle. I mean, the service industry, if the door's not open, our employees not making money. So it just depends on tips and everything. Definitely helped them. It just, EDIL helped us to cover some of our costs, the rent costs, just some of our utilities and everything. So it was really helpful.
That's great, Tolga, thanks. And as a follow-up, aside from hiring and Rick texting you new design ideas throughout the middle of the night, what keeps you up at night?
What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
What keeps you up at night besides Rick's texting you new design ideas?
What keeps me up? I mean, we still have a couple closed restaurants, as one of them is the Meat and Potatoes. That's our, that was our first restaurant, our first baby that we opened up and still closed. Butcher and the Rye still closed, and Pork and Beans, we unfortunately closed it permanently. We're working on some other concept, but not be able to hire people. That's definitely a big concern right now. And not just the restaurant retail, I think it's a national problem. We need to figure out how we can get back the employees back to work and just reopen our restaurants. That's the only thing keeping me up right now.
Great. Lisa, with the pandemic forcing workers to work from home, which has caused daytime population to below 10%, and also the speed with which they're returning to the office, How have you changed your current buying strategy to adapt to the needs of your clients?
Hi, Herky. I hope you can hear me. I think you can.
We can, Lisa. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, great. So we have been omni-channel for a few years. We developed an e-commerce site, which continues to be important and growing for us, but small. We've always been a downtown institution, and we've been affected as just like what Tolga and many of my friends who are in the retail and restaurant business downtown are. So we've done a lot of things. We've continued to offer buy online, pick up in store, or BOPUS, as it was earlier stated to you. We have virtual appointments from the store. We go to people's homes with products. We've offered private appointments both before and after hours to keep people feeling secure. Our standards for safety and cleanliness are ongoing. What we do now, we have on display for everybody. You can see that we're steaming everything in between people trying on clothing so that we can make sure that that's very sanitary for them. In addition, one of the great things about being in retail for the pandemic is I feel like I've gotten an MBA. So managing all that makes the business work, taking care of our teams, keeping our great staff with us, which not many retailers have been able to do, offering the increased services. We've always been about customization. We've always offered on-site alterations for men and women. So we continue to do that. We are also seeing visitors from Ohio every weekend. They're coming to Pittsburgh because they want to travel. They're not ready to fly yet, and they're visiting our shops and our restaurants, and we love that.
That's great. So Lisa, Laramore's is iconic, and having been in business since 1939 and obviously one of the preeminent clothers in the entire nation, what lessons can you teach us how to remain vital? And also, how do you compare today's Pittsburgh to the one that we have grown up with in our careers?
Well, it's changed a lot. I came from New York 22 years ago. I went there after college. And so I think being able to pivot is something absolutely every retailer has learned during the pandemic, every business owner. For us, again, customization, convenience, really great experience. We have to just keep heightening that for our clients, both online and who come in locally, that we want to take care of the best way that we can every single time. So continuing to focus on consistency is super important. And I know you asked somebody else what keeps them up at night. So I am going to tell you, as a retailer downtown, the thing keeping me up at night is the discussions about the Port Authority running Fifth Avenue as purely buses only. And for those of us who've been here for a couple of decades, the returning of Fifth Avenue to be a preeminent and prominent, street for the Fairmont Hotel, Reed Smith, PNC, Laramore's, and countless others on Wood Street. So turning those into a bus-only street is going to be a very great detriment to creating the type of environment that Larissa discussed and making it appealing for everyone, all for the sake of 1 or 2 minutes of save time on a bus line. So that's what's keeping me up at night, besides the pandemic.
Thank you for your points and your soapbox. I know that Jeremy and Caitlin are also going to be on the mobility session. So now you have one of your questions, Jeremy, for that session as well, and a talking point going forward. Dana, with over 30 plus years of experience as a retail industry expert, how do you compare the pandemic to previous recessions?
I think the pandemic's very different than previous recessions. Previous recessions were all economic related. This was health related that became economic related. So in my mind, it had a wider purview of an impact. And the lockdowns, we've never had lockdowns before. This went across the country. And so whether it was rising unemployment, whether it was obviously savings rates being boosted by higher income consumers not spending, this is a broader impact that frankly that turned into economic impact. So it's a health crisis that turned into an economic crisis in my mind.
Do you see the recovery taking longer or shorter than a recession?
It feels like it's going to be shorter shorter, and it's all different areas. I mean, the suburbs are coming back. Some of the cities will take a little bit longer. When tourism returns, and the cities can return because they become a hub of activity. But overall, the spending ability with the dollars that are being funneled to consumers' wallets is greater than what we've ever seen. So we're going to have a second half of the calendar year, whether it's back to school or then the holiday season, that's probably stronger than what we've seen in years past.
That's great. Thank you very much. Larissa, given your breadth of knowledge and experience studying retail trends on a national level, what do you think makes Pittsburgh stand out compared to other cities that make it prime for a rebound?
You know, I think Pittsburgh, like most cities that are destinations, has an incredible amount of culture offerings. You know, I actually wrote an op-ed for Cranes about New York that I think would apply to Pittsburgh. The investments that are reflected in place and organizations, museums, cultural institutions are impossible to replicate at the scale and concentration that they exist anywhere else, right? So those things continue to be the asset that we have to lean on. And, you know, in fact, in New York, the mayor just set aside, I think it's about $30 million for artists and for culture, you know, and there's a recognition that the things that bring people back, the things that make people want to go out at night and, you know, do their theater and a movie, you know, the theater and dinner, I always do that, you know, are what we want to lean on. You know, so I think that's what differentiates Pittsburgh. And to the question you asked earlier, to Dana, if I could just piggyback, I see this, what's happened now, as a transportation revolution disguised as a health crisis, because, you know, the way in which we can communicate digitally now has replaced the ways in which we used to travel. And that's really, really meaningful. When we look back at the history of cities, what makes them grow, what makes them shrink, it has always been connected to transportation and access. And the fact that that is fundamentally changing, I think, throws into question, you know, how downtown will recover.
Thank you. Dana, any response to Larissa's comments?
I agree with what she's saying. I think overall, when you think about transportation, which is so important, one of the reasons why we've seen more cars coming through Manhattan lately, when you look at a website, Mta Ridership Statistics, which basically shows the year-over-year change versus 2019, subways, buses, Metro North, which is Westchester and Long Island Railroad, I mean, they're still down at least 60 to 65%. What's interesting is the tunnels and bridges are showing a decline that's low double digits or even single digits in some instances. So the safety parameters of public transportation still remains a concern.
Great, thank you too. Larissa, I know that you're the author of Improving Tenant Mix, which was published by the ICSC. Given your expertise in this topic, can you discuss how the tenant mix might change post-COVID, if at all, and what lessons should we learn when merchandising our city?
Sure. I mean, I think it comes down to the customer base, right? Retail is a reflection of who's shopping and who's downtown. And, you know, and I hope that point came through in my comments. So as we look at downtown, some of this is going to be the environment we create, and some of it is going to be the environment we inherit. So, you know, who are the residents downtown? What are their needs? Where are they located? How can we encourage them? And how can we deepen penetration of their spending in a downtown environment? In many places where we're sort of running market analysis, we're seeing that there continues to be opportunities in neighborhood goods and services, you know, and that those things that create a great place to live and also to work are still needed. Where we're seeing, you know, softening of demand, we're seeing that in the GAFO categories, you know, general merchandise, apparel, furniture, and other. And, you know, those are things that we're shedding in downtown environments. So we're going to see the mix becoming, you know, recalibrating to a downtown population that has changed.
I'm going to go across the board. Dana, do you see any changes post-COVID for merchandise mix and what lessons we should learn?
I think one of the things we're seeing out there in enclosed malls, it's less apparel. There's less of a focus on apparel. There's more of a focus on services and other categories. I think in downtown here in Manhattan, where if you look between 57th Street and 72nd on Madison Avenue, you have a 40% vacancy rate. And all of a sudden you're beginning to hear about some shifts, some luxury goods tenants going downtown to Soho. There's some other digital tenants that are landlords are being creative with leases and getting them and getting them into physical space. So I think we are going to see more health and wellness, more services, and more creative food and beverage. I think apparel becomes a little bit less, there's fewer apparel tenants going forward, in addition to fewer department stores. I think some of the lifestyle centers and open air are all in demand now. Creating curbside, BOPUS, other areas of convenience for enclosed malls is a way to integrate them more into the community than they had been before.
Thanks. Speaking of creative food and beverage, Tolga, what lessons have you learned through COVID and what changes do you think you guys will make going forward with new concepts? You're about to open up another taco, which is great for the East End. Speak to what you guys have learned and how that's changed your thinking going forward with expansion, if you would.
We recently opened Coupe de Ville. That's our latest restaurant. It's a fast casual restaurant, and we realized that with this design, we can have less workers and we can succeed. So the same thing with the new taco that we're working in Baker Square. We're going to look into more fast casual designs. It's probably like a 7-day, all-day operations, but less dependent on labor. One big thing that we learned is the importance of the technology. I can tell you 2 years ago, hey, you have to come in, scan this thing with your phone. Here's your menu. People will probably eat me alive. But now, a lot of people learn how to use their phones, how to order through their phones, how to read the menus, how to, just communicate with the restaurants, anything with the social media and with the digital platform. So we learned that we're just kind of adjusting ourselves to how can we just reach out to more audiences. We never did to-goes before because our food kind of didn't fit the to-go platforms, just didn't travel well and everything. Now we're adapting. How can we do everything, to go? We believe there's gonna be some customers still coming into our restaurants. There's gonna be some customers that are scared to come still to restaurants. So we have to serve them. To serve them basically is online deliveries. They gotta be able to order online, not communicate with just via their phone and everything. We have to serve them. I think the technology is the big thing that we're working on right now. How can we reach out to more people just from their phones and just, complete orders?
Great answer, Tolga. You guys are pros, so I'm sure you'll master it. And speaking firsthand, Coupe de Ville is a great add to Pittsburgh, so thank you for your efforts there. It's a really great group. Kevin, hang on one second. I went to the game on Saturday and saw some of your recent additions to the arena, including the new Rivers Lounge and the new retail opportunities, including a Get-Go Marketplace, which are fabulous improvements to the arena. What else can fans expect when they make their way back to watch the Penguins game or see a concert? And how will these be integrated into the new development at the 28 acres?
Thank you, Herky. Yeah, so for folks who have been to the games, we took advantage of the downtime while the arena was closed during the height of the pandemic to make some improvements. One of the panelists earlier talked about a contactless experience. That's something that we have been working on, even prior to the pandemic. Not only changing over all of our fixtures, everything in the arena, from the towel dispensers to the hand washing faucets, but we have a sort of a contactless experience right now. Grab and go concepts where you go and you can take food out of the fridge and you go up to a mash bin unit and it's all digital. It reads what you're buying. And so you mentioned we have a partnership that we have with Rivers Casino, that we did a deck at the arena, as well as with Giant Eagle on Get-Go, which follows that same contactless experience. The other thing that we've done is we've invested in our app. And so if you have a Penguins, the app, everything from transportation to buying a ticket to ordering food at the game can be done right from your phone. Just last week, we debuted food lockers in the arena where you could order your food, set a time to pick it up, and then you go to a designated spot, open up the locker, and you grab and you go. And so a lot of that was done for convenience, obviously maximizing throughput, increasing our per caps at the arena, but also it's a safer and more contactless way, for fans to enjoy food and beverage at the arena. And to your point, that'll be completely aligned with what we're doing across the street. That same application that we developed in a partnership with Yinscam, which came out of Carnegie Mellon University and has been utilized by a lot of sports teams across the country. That same platform will be in place in terms of ordering food at restaurants that'll be put in place, across the street. So that's what we've been up to here, prior to kickstarting the season again. And so the next time I like to say we have a lot of new rides at Kennywood here, a lot of new investments that we've made for the users on the call, and not only again to make it more interesting, but also for a more safer and contactless experience.
Well, thank you. And as a vendor of the Penguins with Burgatory, and also as a fan, seeing mobile ordering on the big screen when we went to the game Saturday was quite a thrill. So it shows you how old I am. I was tickled by just the small things, and that was a pretty big thing for me. So I appreciate that. Circling back, we have a couple questions in the queue that I'm going to ask, and then we can. From Greg Bruges, for restaurants that are establishing new locations, are they taking less square footage with their new prototypes? Or are they keeping the same amount of space? If taking less on average, how much less? I'll open that up to you, Tolga. Go ahead, and Kevin, actually.
All right, I'll start. We haven't. So the taco space, there was actually a space that we worked on pre-pandemic. So we couldn't do anything, but the concept is definitely different. So. And we see this happening. We see a lot of, fast food concepts kind of get rid of in their indoor dining. They're more just doing, drive-through and everything. That's why we were just, as a restaurant group, working on more having, pickups, definitely online pickups and just in-store pickups, and also just having a little bit less indoor dining, more, fast food, just, customer come in, eat quick and leave. So we haven't decided on if we're going to take less space or more space, but we're looking into see what will fit our fast food concepts.
Awesome, thank you. Great answer. So here's one for the panel, and probably most likely Dana and Larissa. What's your prediction for how the 2021 holiday season will play out this year, the shopping season? Do you think shoppers will continue to shop mostly online, or will there be a softening in online sales? And might shoppers opt for a new, unique in-person experience?
So I'll start. I think shoppers are going to do both. And I think you're going to see a pickup in traffic. Already we've heard of some of the traffic levels back in open air centers, some of them back to nearly 90% of 2019 levels. I think you're going to see retailers in store be more creative than ever, more creative in terms of being in stock, more creative with buy online, pick up in store, and service options. Certainly the theme coming out of the pandemic is people are going there for purposeful purchases. With dollars that consumers have available to them continuing to be quite strong going through holiday 2021, I think it'll be a strong holiday season, both in store and both online. One of the changes could be if travel picks up, then some of these big urban areas are going to get an influx of tourists, which should boost city spending for the holiday season in store.
Awesome. Larissa?
I mean, I'm really bullish. I think that we're going to see spending, right? People have savings and they're going to want to spend it on family and connect with family again after not having seen family in quite a long time. So I think there's the opportunity there. And frankly, a lot of people were burned last year having ordered online, and, their gifts did not come until after Christmas. I think no one wants to repeat that situation. And so, I see really great opportunity for brick and mortar. It's not, online shopping is not going to go away, but, I do think the season looks bright.
Great. Lisa, you're the expert in the brick and mortar. What are you expecting for this year? And have your buying patterns and thoughts changed regarding the 2021 shopping season?
Yeah, we do expect it to definitely pick up. And we also, the people who we're seeing come in now are super excited to be out and be in person. They are, and they are understanding.
I hear you.
They are understanding when they have to wait, which is a new thing in our store. Not waiting, but being understanding about it, because it's so high service that they don't usually have to feel like they aren't the only person around. And then we also anticipate lots of different kinds of gift giving. We have redone our assortment both this spring going into fall. That's one of the fun things about my job, is being ready for things as they change. So we do expect it to be very good. And I also want to add, this is not a soapbox moment, Herky, that we deliver same day within 10 miles of our store. So if you talk about people taking a chance on ordering online from somebody like Amazon versus supporting your small local businesses that make each community vibrant and different, look for your retailers to do everything that they can to really make you feel valued. And we're so excited also to get back to a lot of the events that we have planned that will replace the pop-ups and things that we did this year, with a couple of great parties by the end of the year, if we're lucky.
I'm going to prop up your soapbox, Lisa, and I have no problem with you in that soapbox. I wholeheartedly support shopping and dining local. It's been a really tough year for the last 15 months for our local retailers and local restaurateurs and those who are in experiential dining and entertainment. Please, please, please think of them when you're shopping and dining and going out for fun. It's been a tough road to hoe. These are your family members, your neighbors, your friends. They put the money back in the community. Not that we shouldn't shop nationally, but certainly please do your part to support your local retailers and restaurateurs. I'm going to remind you one more thing. If you have any questions, you can submit them into the question and answer feature on the bottom. I'm going to try to get to all of them. There's been quite a few, and I thank you for that. And our panelists are incredible. There was one question about the Frank and Cedar building downtown. I can remind you there is a session tomorrow at noon where Stark out of Ohio will be discussing their development plans for the Frank and Cedar building. So I'm not going to touch on that today, but I thank you for your question nonetheless. Question for Tolga and Lisa. With social media seemingly becoming more and more relevant to conducting business in the retail and restaurant industry, can you speak to how they engage with their followers? Has this been a more important tool with COVID for anyone? Tolga, Lisa?
Sure. Yeah, so this has been super critical for us. As I mentioned before, we're doing a lot of things virtually. We're giving people store tours. We're shopping with them virtually. Also, there are now, segments, things that you can do, Instagram Live. You can have shopping events live and virtual events live. And then, managing our social media, various profiles. Every week we're putting up short videos, whether they're educational or they're highlighting things that we have. So yes, I don't know a retailer who's still standing that is not on top of their social media and the opportunities to conduct both e-commerce and direct commerce via social media as well.
Awesome. I have two more questions and I'll give you guys back 5 minutes of your lives. So Kevin, over your lifetime, you've seen and been instrumental in a myriad of changes and remarkable growth for our city. Can you speak to how we are positioned for the present and the future and what challenges we may face?
Yeah, so I think a lot of us who are on this call who have kind of seen the rise of the city and the ashes of the steel industry collapse in the late 70s. Obviously, this last year has been a challenge. I think downtown at one point was the largest growing residential neighborhood in the city, which is a good thing. Obviously, we're all sort of waiting to see, when and how soon people come back and are comfortable being together again in rooms with close proximity. Certainly, I have 18,500 empty seats out there in the arena behind this wall that, our business literally we're banking on, people coming back. So, but, this city's seen harder times and certainly we've we're a resilient town. I think people are committed to the rebirth and the growth of the city, and I think that's what's carried us in the past. So, calling with the governor's office later today, we've seen some really positive progress in the opening of the economy. Obviously, keeping people safe is first priority, but our bet is that we're a strong institutional base here. We have the underlyings of the economics here with our universities and hospital systems, which are world class, which are driving our local economy, are intact. And so hopefully once behavior changes and people feel more comfortable coming out of their homes, I can tell you the last couple of weeks of traffic have confirmed that people are much more reasonable. I've come into work every day since March. So, the last couple of weeks, 28's been more of a challenge. That being said, I'm very confident from my chair, which has been in City Hall now here at the Penguins, that we're going to come back strong.
Well, I personally can't wait to watch you hoist that cup at center ice sometime soon. So good luck with the playoffs, and let's go Pens.
Thank you, Arky.
Final thoughts for the panel. I'm going to open it up for final thoughts and any parting words. You guys have been absolutely incredible. When I dreamt of this panel, I dreamt of a really vibrant and vital group and very prestigious and knowledgeable, and you guys have exceeded my expectations. So thank you all extremely much. And I'm opening it up for just final thoughts. Don't be shy. Come on, Dana, start talking.
So I think basically we should remember that what came out of the pandemic, companies with healthier balance sheets, companies that can innovate, companies that are closer to their customer, and the importance of service. I totally agree with you. Think local, act local, and remember to provide the meaning in what makes the transaction seamless, because the consumer is going to remember that, your sales associate remembers that, and it all comes down to one team, one dream. And that's going to make the vibrancies of cities and companies rejuvenate after the tragedy of the pandemic.
Love it. Tolga?
Downtown is ready for, downtown has been shut down for a little bit of time, but we are ready. All the restaurants, all the retailers, we just need our Pittsburghers to come back to us. We miss them. They miss us. All the restaurants are ready for them. All the retail stores are ready. I think this summer is going to be a good summer for us. Hopefully the shows and entertainment will come back, and hopefully the capacity will go up. It's nice to see, Penguin jersey. It's nice to see Pirate jerseys dining in our restaurants again. It's nice to see bar seating coming back and people enjoying it. So we need everybody's support. We need everybody in Pittsburgh area to come downtown, help us, we grow downtown again. And I would like to thank PDP. They're doing an amazing job. They helped us a lot with the tough times, with the outdoor seating. The city of Pittsburgh helped us great. They created some areas for us to be able to dine outside. And the winter times usually are tough times, but we survived a little bit with their help in those tough times that we couldn't do indoor dining. But once again, downtown is ready for everybody. Please come back.
Thank you, Tolga. We'll be there and we will support you. You guys have been great for Pittsburgh and we love you guys. And just a little inside secret, if you guys are going to try Jajin, try the tuna pizza. It's off the charts. So it's a little trade secret. Larissa, how about you?
I at the risk of being a downer, I think that we have our work cut out for us. But the great thing is that, out of crisis, I think we come together, and that this is a real opportunity to share in a strategy for recovery for downtown that will be long lasting. So in that, I'm very hopeful.
Thank you. We feel it. Kevin?
Just to echo prior comments, I appreciate everyone's time. Appreciate the PDP. I'm also on the board, Jeremy. You guys have done a tremendous job. To echo Tolga's comments, changing gears, raising money with the foundations, putting dollars to work. The frontline workers of the hospital and the public safety workers have bore the brunt of this pandemic, but you also have to think about the folks that work in our restaurants and bars who, for the longest time, were legally not permitted to work. And so I appreciate the PDP's efforts, again, to rethink ways that people can enjoy, the offerings and to do so in a way that kept a lot of these small businesses alive. We've heard earlier, a lot of people didn't survive the pandemic, but let's hope that those folks will come back and people will continue to patronize them, because that's what it takes to really bounce back from the last 14 months.
Thanks, Kevin. Lisa?
Yeah, I'd like to also thank the PDP. My business partner's been involved with them for quite a while, but they have done so many creative things to help our retail stores and restaurants, and we are grateful for that, for the creativity and the caring. And I think I'm also grateful for the PPP. Most retailers, including us, would not be here without that government help, which I did not expect to be thanking at any point in my life. So I'm very grateful for that, grateful for our teams and our clients, and we welcome people back and can't wait to see you. And we're going to make it as meaningful as it's always been, if not more.
Well, thank you all. A couple of thoughts on my end. So Pittsburgh's resilient, Pittsburgh's strong. We've weathered tons and tons of storms. They've written us off for dead numerous times, but we are a strong, tight community, and we're going to survive this pandemic and come out of it much stronger than we did before. In years past, we've seen a transformation of our city. During this pandemic, you'll be surprised to learn that we leased more square feet downtown of retail space than we lost to the pandemic. That's Pittsburgh. That's Pittsburgh strong. We are a tight community. We'll get through this together as one community and come out of this together. I want to thank you all for your time. The panel, I can't thank you enough for making this an incredible session. Truly, I really appreciate that. Thank you all very, very much. I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin to give us some closing comments and take us out of here. So thank you all very much for your time, and let's go Pens, let's go Pittsburgh.
Thanks, Herky, for those parting comments. And thanks for serving as our moderator for this session. We really appreciate it. And we're extremely grateful to all of our panelists who, gave up their time and valuable insight for this session. So big thanks to Lisa, Dana, Kevin, Tolga, and Larissa. It was just fascinating to hear and learn from your expertise in this field. And I also heard the overarching theme of how transportation and access is critically important to downtown. And, it's one of those things that can really make or break the street level experience of downtown from a user perspective. So with that, we are all in luck that our next and final session for the day, titled The Future of Downtown Mobility, will begin at noon, where we will take a deeper dive into this topic. And thanks to you all for tuning in today to watch. You can review the 2021 State of Downtown Pittsburgh report online at our website at downtownpittsburgh.com. This session was recorded and will be available by the end of the day today if you wish to review again or to share it with your colleagues. There'll also be a link provided in the chat as well. And finally, we invite you to join us for our 2021 State of Downtown Pittsburgh Reforge virtual conference series that will begin tomorrow at 8:30. We're hosting a session on welcoming visitors back to downtown, followed by a session on public safety and vulnerable populations at 10. And then we are going to close out the series with a longer session at noon called Digging into Downtown Development, where we will hear from 10 different leaders on how the investments that they are making in downtown will have the potential to transform the urban core. So to register for these sessions, if you haven't done so already, you can do so by going to downtownpittsburgh.com. All right, well, that wraps us up. Thank you again. And here's to better days ahead for the retail and restaurant industry. Thanks all.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you all.